Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions and a ton of really interesting stuff to talk about on today's show. Really excited about it. So let's get into the news you need to know about. This first news story comes from NBC Sports. Dolphins to interview Charles London for their offensive coordinator vacancy. Now, it's not confirmed, but it's not confirmed officially, but it is expected, at least from all of the Miami Dolphins beat writers that we've heard from so far, that they expect Mike McDaniel to retain some of Brian Flores' defensive staff. So if they do retain Josh Boyer and some of the other defensive coaches, that's huge. And this is obviously some interesting insight into how Mike McDaniel is going to fill out his offensive staff. There's not really much to know about Charles London. He was a quarterbacks coach for Atlanta this past season. He's coached the Titans and Bears. He coached for the Duke Blue Devils, but there is not much else there to really kind of get a feel of, I don't know, how he calls plays. We don't know who's going to call plays officially yet, whether it's Mike McDaniel or Charles London. I'm sure Mike will answer that in his introductory press conference that's coming around the corner here. But this is interesting news because we expect the defensive staff to be very similar to what it was last year, but what I'm most interested in is who Mike gets for his offensive line coach. I think that's the most important hire, and I know that sounds a little crazy, but if you look around the league and you look at some of the best offensive line units in the NFL, all of them have really good offensive line coaches, and for whatever reason, the offensive line coach makes a huge impact, and I would put this up against even quarterback coaches more than any other positional coach on your football team. If you look at some of the best offensive line coaches throughout the last 15 years, they all make huge impacts on their team. So I'm interested to see who he gets to be the offensive line coach here in Miami. So this is the first story of someone obviously interviewing for an offensive staff position on the Dolphins so far. And we'll see if Charles London gets it. I don't know if this is... depending on who is calling plays, I think that's the most interesting thing. And this is good for Tua because Tua is at least going to have a normal situation when it comes to whoever is calling plays, because last year was a clown show. It was an absolute clown show. So moving on from that, we move on to the next news story, which I find very interesting. Obviously, probably everybody knows this, but these two things put together, I think, makes for an interesting story. The Dolphins officially are picking 29th overall in this upcoming draft. There's also rumors and news that Calvin Ridley is going to be traded in the offseason, and there's a lot of rumors saying the Dolphins are really interested in trying to acquire him. And since the Dolphins have such a low first-round pick, and if you look at the history of some of the lower-end first-round picks, if they're not quarterbacks, it's been pretty mediocre over the last few years. So that pick's not that valuable. And if it is true the Dolphins are interested in Calvin Ridley and they trade, obviously if they give up the 29th overall pick to get to him, I think that's the best move that they can do. I think that would be monumental to his development. The Dolphins need a number 2 receiver. Marry him with Mike McDaniel's offense. And that would be a huge step in the right direction. Obviously, Tua has a lot of familiarity with him because he threw to him in college, so that chemistry is there. We saw how, we saw how impactful a college connection could be, even with Tua and Waddle, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow, and Calvin Ridley and Tua. So that would be amazing to watch. I mean, do you know how hyped I would be if the Dolphins did that? I think, we don't know Calvin's always had some mental issues or some off-the-field issues this past season. I'm not really too familiar with that. I don't think much has been said about that. But regardless, if the Dolphins were able to acquire Calvin Ridley for a late first-round pick, that to me, honestly, Calvin Ridley would be the most talented player that they could even wish to get at that position. And plus, the Atlanta Falcons are in a rebuild, so I think it would be a pretty easy get for the Dolphins. And they're not losing too much either. They're only giving up the 29th overall pick for a really, really talented receiver. And I think would, like I said, be huge for Tua's development and a step in the right direction. If the Dolphins are serious about Tua and they're serious about winning games and being a contender with Tua, put as much around him as you possibly can. You have the most cap space in the league. Your first round pick isn't that high. You have a number one receiver on the market who's a special player. I mean, he basically other than him and Kyle Pitts won that Falcons game when we played them in Miami. I mean, Calvin Ridley is a very talented receiver and fits the way Tua plays the quarterback position. Plays the quarterback position to a T. You know, Calvin Ridley gets in and out of his breaks very fast. He's good after the catch, and he's really good in the quick pass game. So all of those things put together, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction. Again, if the Dolphins are serious about Tua and moving forward with Tua, they have to. I hope the one thing that they do this offseason is put as much talent around him as possible. You know, there was a stat that came up this week that the Dolphins haven't had a top 10 total offense since 1995, which is by far the longest drought in the history, or in the league right now. Not the history of the league, but the longest drought out of any NFL team, even teams like the Cleveland Browns. So we haven't had a top 10 offense in a long time. And we haven't had a good offense in a long time. And I think all of the assets, and this is a scoring league. It is. And I think we're all kind of sick and tired of leading the league in punts and 3-and-outs and just bad offense all the way around. And the Dolphins have the assets to completely change this offense and surround Tua as much talent as they can, and hopefully they do it. Because getting Calvin Ridley and Waddle, and maybe you can get back Gesicki, there's a lot of really good free agent running backs. If you don't want to do that, you could get one in the second round of the draft, because there's a few really talented running backs in this draft. So there's so many avenues the Dolphins can take this. But if the rumors are true that they're interested in Calvin Ridley, I hope they pull the trigger on this, because to me, I think that would completely change the outlook of next season. And it would send a message to the fans that they're serious about fixing this offense. And the defense is fine. I've said this before. The defense is already built. It's ready to go. But if the Dolphins got Calvin Ridley, I mean, I would be on cloud 9. Okay, so let's move on from that news story. What is the next news story? I think we pretty much covered it. There wasn't that much news. Not much has happened since the hiring of Mike McDaniel. One thing I do want to get into before we move on to some other things. This last news story, we get more insight on obviously, we haven't actually talked about this, but we got more insight on the Brian Flores separation from the Dolphins. And if you guys don't know, we'll run through it very quickly. I have changed my opinion on this. Hearing the stuff we've heard over the last 2 weeks about, the stuff that came out in the lawsuit with the tanking and the Tom Brady meeting that was botched and stuff like that, it was very clear that that relationship was shattered. And I think we all now can see why Brian Flores was fired. It had nothing to do with him and Chris Greer. It had to do with him and Stephen Ross, and the relationship seemed to be pretty terrible. And I don't even know if fans blame Stephen Ross for what he tried to do. Because every fan that I know, especially in the 2019 season, wanted us to lose and to get that number 1 overall pick. So I don't really blame him for doing what he did. Every fan of that team at that point, especially hardcore fans, wanted that anyway. And especially the next year trying to get Tom Brady to come to Miami, I don't blame Stephen Ross for that. I mean, he had good intentions. His intent was right. He was right. Brian was wrong. And he was right to want to get Joe Burrow, and he was right to try to get Tom Brady to come to Miami. And, yeah. Well, I don't know what else you can say about that. But I definitely changed my opinion. I think this was the best move for the organization was for Brian Flores to be fired and for them to go their separate ways, for sure. I think that's pretty clear now. And honestly, I think Mike McDaniel is a step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see what he does with this team. So excited and we're going to talk about this on today's show, on today's podcast. Just all the different things the Dolphins can do to improve their offense. They have, it's limitless. They can do whatever they want. as long as they just do it. And I'm excited to see what they do with all the assets that they have at their disposal this upcoming season. So moving on from that, which leads me into the last news story of the day. We kind of discussed it a little bit on the channel already, but the Dolphins officially hire Mike McDaniel. He has had his introductory press conference yet. Very excited about that. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit on the podcast because I forgot to mention some things. The kind of ripple effect of hiring Mike McDaniel. I really want to get into some of the things that he can do to help Tua and Jalen Waddle and a lot of players on this offense. I think what Mike does, and especially what Kyle Shanahan does so well, and everybody who comes from Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree that do so well, is they maximize their best players to the best of their ability, especially when they're game planning. They get the most out of them in each and every single game. If you look at Matt LaFleur, what he does with Devontae Adams, if you look at what Sean McVay does with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Odell Beckham Jr., if you look at what Kyle Shanahan does with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, they make you defend them every single game. They make other teams defend their best players and get the most out of them each and every single game. And I think that's going to... And all of those guys do it in very creative ways. And you can see their number one... Whoever their best player on offense is, they all go for big numbers. And obviously Mike McDaniel is from that tree. So I think that's going to really help Waddle. And I'm excited to see how he uses Waddle in his offense. I think that's going to be so fun to watch. And Tua especially. Some of the things that I've criticized Tua for, I think the biggest thing is him throwing the football over the middle of the field. Sometimes he loses control of the football. And the thing that Kyle Shanahan and a lot of the guys that come from that coaching tree do best is throwing the ball over the middle. Some of the stuff and creative stuff that they do in the quick pass game over the middle fits Tua perfectly. And I think that's going to really help Tua in that department. And I'm excited to see that marriage as well, especially with bootlegs and play action. You add all that stuff onto it. I'm just excited to see Mike take reign of Tua and especially with Waddle. And, it's going to be interesting to see what he does with Mike Gesicki. Obviously, Mike is not a George Kittle type of a tight end. It's going to be interesting to see if Mike McDaniel wants to retain him, because if you look at Mike Gesicki, he's not really a good fit for this offense. And I'm interested to see how the organization views him now and how Mike McDaniel views him. Because if he can find a way to fit him in the offense, I'm excited to see how he uses Mike Gesicki too. Because, I think Mike, and I've criticized Mike a lot on this podcast of, he's not the best at separating in man coverage. He's a long strider. He doesn't get in and out of his breaks quickly. But he is a talented player. And I'm interested to see what a more talented offensive mind can do with someone like his skill set. So there's so many things I'm excited to see. There's so many things I'm excited about that Mike McDaniel adds to the offense. And so I'm very excited about the future of the team. And I think the Dolphins got a really good head coach, and I'm excited for the future of the team. So that's it for the news, ladies and gentlemen. Not that much news to talk about, but that's all the news you need to know about. And I really want to talk about this topic of the show before we get into the fan Q&A, is all of the things the Dolphins can do in free agency this year, because it's pretty much limitless. They have the most cap space in the NFL, and there's a lot of really good skill position players. And this is another thing that I love about Mike McDaniel. He actually values the offensive line. He values the running back position. He values skill positions. And again, in a league that is set up for the offense to succeed, that's all of that stuff is important. And in a scoring league, those things should be valued more than the Dolphins have valued them in the past. So that's another positive about Mike McDaniel. All right, so let's get into this. So I want to break down, or at least go through, all of the best free agents and rumored free agents that are possibly going to be available. And I want to focus on the skill positions. I don't want to get into the offensive line in this episode. I want to really focus on the skill positions. I want to start with the running back position. So obviously the Dolphins have two free agent running backs. I think Duke Johnson, I believe, is a free agent this upcoming season. And obviously, Philip Lindsay is a free agent as well. I hope they retain both of them. I think Duke Johnson and Philip Lindsay showed a lot this year, and I would be excited to see how Mike and the Kyle Shanahan offense, how those two would fit, especially in the passing game. We saw Kyle Shanahan use Jerick McKinnon in the past at a high level, and I think Duke Johnson can do some of those same things. I don't think he would keep both of them. I think he would choose one of them. I do like Philip Lindsay's running style. I think it fits what Mike McDaniel asks from his running backs, and I like both of them. I thought they showed a lot, especially down the stretch. They really helped out the offense and alleviate a lot of pressure on that pass game, so I would not be opposed to those two coming back. But some other big name free agents, and one of these guys is just rumored to be let go this upcoming offseason. He is not a free agent, but I think he's an interesting prospect, and that's Saquon Barkley. Now, if the Dolphins don't address this running back position in the draft, I think Saquon would be such an interesting signing for the Dolphins, and would be one of my definitely on the top of my list when you talk about some of the free agent running backs. So yeah, Saquon would be amazing. I think his ability to affect the game in the run game and pass game is extraordinary. He just can't stay healthy. And maybe, who knows, a change of scenery. We get him on the cheap. We get the Saquon Barkley that we all thought we would get. And some of the other there's a lot of really good running backs in this free agent class. Melvin Gordon, Jalen Richard, who's a really good change of pace, scat third down back. Leonard Fournette, Cordell Patterson, who's a great yards from scrimmage guy. That would be a fantastic addition to the team. Raheem Mostert, obviously Mike McDaniel has a lot of familiarity with him in San Francisco. Rashad Penny, another first round pick sorry, this commercial popped up. Who didn't pan out, but has a lot of talent. Similar to Saquon. I don't think he's as talented as Saquon, but definitely a name to look out for. James White, who could be a fantastic third down back. Jeff Wilson, not bad. Another 49ers running back that Mike McDaniel is familiar with. Marlon Mack. Obviously, Miami fans are familiar with him. Rojo, Ronald Jones from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think would be another really good fit. Two really good Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs in this free agent class. Dude, I'm telling you, this running back free agent class is insane. Out of all the years the Dolphins have the most cap space and hopefully an ambition to change this offense, the free agent class this year is really good to fix an offense, especially with the skill positions. And it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. James Conner is also a free agent. Some other really nice, not nice, I don't know how to use the word nice, but really good players as well. Tevin Coleman, who's a nice back. Peyton Barber, who's a good backup running back. And I think that's it. But there's a lot of really, really good starting caliber running backs in this free agent class. I think the guys that I am most interested in, and definitely would be who I want the Dolphins to go after, I think if I had to name four of them, my top four would be Leonard Fournette, Cordell Patterson, Raheem Mostert, and Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon is not an official free agent, it's just rumored. But those would be my four guys for sure that I would love to see in Miami Dolphins uniform. Leonard Fournette and Cordell Patterson would be great helps to the team. And like I said, and I've said this in the past, I think if you look at running backs in today's NFL, it's not just what they can do with running the football, but what can they do in the passing game. And Cordell Patterson is one of the best yards from scrimmage running backs in the league. And so is Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette really stepped up that part of his game these last few seasons. So, yeah, I would love to see Cordell Patterson or Leonard Fournette in a Dolphins uniform, or Saquon, or Raheem Mostert. And remember, Raheem Mostert used to play, was on a Dolphins roster at one point. I don't think he ever played in a regular season game, but he would actually be returning to the Dolphins, funny enough. But yeah, a lot of really, really good running backs in free agency, and players like Brandon Bolden too, who are good special teams guys, and good running backs. So there's so many running backs in this free agent class that could really help the Dolphins offense out. And I want to talk about the wide receivers too. I think number one on my list, by far, is Calvin Ridley. If the Dolphins can get Calvin Ridley, it would be one of the best moves that they've made in a long time. And I think it would definitely send a message. Like I said earlier, it would send a message to the fans. But there's a lot of other really good free agent receivers that we wouldn't have to give up any draft capital for. And here are all the free agent wide receivers coming up this offseason. Devontae Adams, he would be fantastic. I don't think that's going to happen. Whoever Aaron Rodgers goes to, or it's heavily rumored that he's going to get hit with the franchise tag. So I doubt Devontae Adams is going anywhere. So that's a little bit more unrealistic. But players like Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Michael Gallup, Antonio Brown, that's a big no for me. So I shouldn't have even mentioned his name. But he's also a free agent. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think any of us Dolphins fans want that to happen. Odell Beckham Jr., he would be awesome. Juju Smith-Schuster would be fantastic in this scheme. Like, he's a scheme fit. He's a fit for Tua as well. He's great in the quick pass game. He's great after the catch. Big physical receiver. Would help block in the run game. And, there's a clip out there of Mike McDaniel explaining to players why it's so important explaining to his players why it's so important for receivers to block in the run game. So that's something he values a lot. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster would be a big fit in that department. Christian Kirk would be a fantastic receiver as well to have on the team. He's a great deep threat to really put beside. Would add a lot of speed to the team and would be a good kind of opposite. And definitely would probably be what we try to get out of Will Fuller, and we obviously ended up not getting out of him. Christian Kirk would be a nice addition to the team as well. DJ Chark Jr., another really young receiver who has a lot of upside still. Will Fuller, we probably shouldn't even mention his name on this podcast. Jamison Crowder's another great guy. Like, there's so many, every year there's so many, like, under-the-radar receivers. Jamison Crowder's another one of those guys who would be a fantastic fit for Tua. Great slot player, and is great in the quick pass game. Sammy Watkins, not a huge fan of Sammy Watkins. Can't stay healthy, and I think he's on the kind of the down slope of his career. Who else do we have on this list that's actually worth mentioning? Jacoby Myers, I do believe, is also a free agent. I think, and I've said this before, but Jacoby would be amazing to have on. I mean, we saw him play against us. I just want to make sure I'm right about this. Let me look this up. Sorry, guys, but yeah, Jacoby Myers is a baller. And he's another guy who was great in the quick pass game. And that's all he did for Mac Jones. Would be a great security blanket for Tua. Great third down presence. I do believe he's a free agent. Someone's going to have to let me down in the comment section below. He wasn't on this list. I was kind of confused by that. Jacoby Myers is a free agent. But he said he definitely wants to stay with the Patriots. So we'll end up seeing what happens with that. But again, really good receiver class, really good running back class. I think if I had to rank them, let's see here. Sorry guys, the tab left me. But yeah, just really good skill positions. And again, a really kind of great timing for the Dolphins to have this much cap space this offseason. But if I had to rank them, honestly, I think Chris Godwin and Juju Smith-Schuster would be the two, and Calvin Ridley, obviously. But it kind of, he's more of a, I guess, a fantasy, you'd say. It's only rumors at this point. But in terms of free agents, Juju Smith-Schuster and Chris Godwin, both great run blockers, both great third down receivers, both great quick pass game receivers, and again, great third down presence for Tua, and both of them are physical and would be good security blankets for Tua as well. And great compliments to Waddle, and a great scheme fit. Like I said, Mike McDaniel, obviously, and if you look at the 49ers receivers, Debo and Brandon Ayuk, both very physical receivers. Chris Godwin and Juju Smith-Schuster are physical, after the catch and in the run game blocking. So to me, those two would be got to be high on. I would assume Mike McDaniel would look at those guys, and those would be big scheme fits for his scheme, because and both would be great players and great additions to the team. It's something that this team has lacked over the last, I don't know how many years, is a really good third down receiver, especially to take some of the pressure off Waddle. Because I think Waddle did enough this year where defensive, especially this last year, defensive coordinators have to take him away, and that would open some things up for, especially over the middle with Juju Smith-Schuster and Chris Godwin. And that's something, again, Tua has struggled with. And no offense to Waddle, obviously he's not the tallest, biggest guy. Chris Godwin and just Juju are a little bit bigger, and like I said, could help too. And especially if you think about it, now that I sit back and think about it, who else I mean, Albert Wilson is small. So I think it would help the quick pass game, and I think it would help some of Tua's throws over the middle, getting players like Godwin and Juju, and definitely would help us move the chains on third down. And Kyle and Sean, their offenses are they're famous for running some of those speed sweeps with their receivers, and I think both of those guys would be really good at it, especially after the catch. You don't want Waddle doing that too much. He's a smaller dude. So having them do it a little bit more, I think they could definitely fill that Robert Woods role, or Deebo Samuel role. They're not as athletic as Deebo. I mean, there's not many players that are, but I think they could definitely fill that physical run after the catch role that those guys kind of fill for their teams. So that's it. A lot of interesting names in there, that I'm excited to see if the Dolphins have to at least, they have to get at least one of these guys at every position. At least get Juju Smith or Schuster or Calvin Ridley or Chris Godwin. Get someone to help Tua. Like I said, if they're serious about Tua, then help him. Surround him with good players and talent. And I hope they do that. And they have more than enough opportunities to do that this offseason. There's a lot of really good players, like we just went over, at the skill positions, and I hope they do it. So let's get into the fan Q&A. I can't imagine how hyped the fan base would be. I don't know. Maybe you guys don't you never know with Dolphins fans. But if they, let's say they got Juju Smith-Schuster or Calvin Ridley or Chris Godwin, and they added a Leonard Fournette, that would be amazing, dude. Dude, oh my God. Just the thought of it would, I can't, I'm speechless. I am speechless. I think, I was going to say Leonard Fournette would be like the most talented running back we've had since Reggie Bush. I would take Leonard Fournette. I think everybody would take Leonard Fournette over Lamar Miller. So let's get into the fan Q&A. And I can't even imagine if Calvin Ridley and Waddle were on the same team. It would be deadly. Let's get into this first question. This first question comes from Beef. He says, "Hey Skaggs, now that Mike McDaniel is the head coach, what are your expectations for Tua next season? Are you willing to see a playoff berth or a Super Bowl win? A lot of fans are shooting for the moon. We either win a Super Bowl or we move on from Tua. I hear the next year has a better quarterback draft class than this coming year. I'm not setting expectations nor bashing Tua, but what are you wanting to see next season with him and McDaniel?" I think the thing that I want to see more than anything is improvement on the offensive side of the football, from a talent standpoint and to a performance standpoint on the field. I want to see creativity. I want to see a good offense ran the right way. I want to see an innovative offense. I just want to see improvement on the offensive side of the football, because we have been so bad for so long at offense. It just would be really refreshing to see him turn that unit around. And I think that's what I would want to see the most. This upcoming season is, I want to see confirmation that Tua is the franchise quarterback, and I want to see this offense go in the right direction, and be respectable, and be competitive this upcoming season. So I think that's the thing that I would want to see the most. This next question comes from Beef again. He says, oh Lord, we'll go to this question here. He says, "Hey Skaggs, who do you got winning the Super Bowl? I'm going for the Rams because of Stafford to get a ring. At the same time, I will not count out the Bengals, and they look really good at a perfect time." Yeah, I think the Rams are going to win pretty handedly. I don't think this will be a close Super Bowl, if I had to guess. We know how bad an offensive line can affect a game, and it's just such a big mismatch. And I know I'm not saying anything new, but If I had to say, I would say the Rams. This next question comes from Maurice. He says, "Hey Skaggs, what are your thoughts if McDaniel brings in Vic Fangio as DC and Wes Welker as OC? Positive or negative hires?" Yeah, they do have that connection with Wes Welker. Obviously, Wes Welker is the receiver coach for the 49ers. So there's that cool connection there. If Wes Welker became the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, I think that would be awesome. Obviously, he's a former Dolphin himself. He's been coaching for a while in the league now. Obviously knows his stuff. And, yeah, that would be pretty cool. I hope the Dolphins keep... If the rumors are true, and what the beat writers are saying is true, that McDaniel wants to keep Josh Boyer on staff and stuff, I would rather, to be honest with you, I think that's the best outcome, is just to keep the defensive staff. So I'm not for Vic Fangio, but I think that would be the best outcome for the Dolphins if they kept Josh. And, yeah, Wes Welker would be awesome. This next question comes from Richard Rodriguez. He says, "How does Mike Gesicki fit into Mike McDaniel's offense when this offense even requires wide receivers to block? Do you see them re-signing him or moving on?" Yeah, that's the first thing I thought about when we hired Mike officially. I could definitely see them moving on and going in a different direction. And it would suck to see Mike go. You know, as much as I have problems with the way he plays at times, he is such a fan. I would say he's definitely a fan favorite, and he's been a part of some of the bigger plays that we've made over the last few years. And it would suck to see him play for a different team and put a different uniform on. So, my heart doesn't want to see him go, but my head is telling me it's probably for the best. So I could totally see him. I just don't understand what. Only in like third downs and obvious pass situations would be where Mike Gesicki would get into the football game. But who knows? Mike McDaniel, by all accounts, is a very smart individual. Knows a ton about football. Maybe he can find a interesting thing for him to do on first and second down, because we know Mike McDaniel wants to run the ball, and Mike Gesicki cannot run block, and he plays tight end. So it's not a great fit. But who knows? Maybe Mike McDaniel can carve out a role for him in the offense. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, "We have a new coach now, but what talent exactly do you think he brings to the Dolphins team that stands out?" I think his ability to maximize his best players on the offensive side of the football, and get to make them as productive as possible, I think is his best attribute. I mean, everybody from that coaching tree does that so well. And I think the other thing about Mike that I like a lot is his game planning. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's the same style of offense, but it's not the same offense every single week. The smart coaches in the league really attack defenses and their weaknesses week in and week out. You're going to see a new defense every week. And a lot of bad coaches just run the same thing every week and expect a different result. Mike McDaniel attacks weaknesses from week in and week out. So it's not going to be the same thing every week. He is going to look at the other team that we're playing and say, okay, this is what we have to do to beat them. This is what they do. This is their weaknesses. And this is what we're going to attack on Sundays. And then he puts his best players in position to attack those weaknesses. And those are the things that get me excited about Mike and the stuff that he can bring here. This next question comes from Mark. He says, what do you think about the hire? I love it. I think it's a step in the right direction. And this last question comes from Steven. He said, okay. This question comes from Steven. He says, "Who is the biggest joke in Dolphins history, and why is it Brian Flores?" Well, I definitely don't think Brian Flores is a joke. I think what he was... I mean, dude, I think it was definitely for the best for both parties to part ways, especially after hearing all the stuff of the last 2 weeks. But people forget, the man won... He had back-to-back winning seasons, which hasn't been done in over 20 years here. He completely turned this team around. I mean, he inherited the team from Adam Gase. People forget that, and has added a lot of really good talented players. The defense is so talented, on every level, from the front seven to the back end. There's good players to be found in any group that you can point to on the Dolphins defense. So I can't go there with you that Brian Flores is a joke, because he's the farthest thing from a joke. He's a great head coach, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to football. Unfortunately, obviously, he wasn't on the same page with the owner and what the owner's vision was, and I think that kind of hurt the team a lot, clearly. And that was, and I can't believe I'm saying this, what Stephen Ross said, he was telling the truth, where he was like, the organization has to be collaborative for it to work. And now we know what he means by that. I think it just makes it all make way more sense. And I'm glad that it all came out, because it just gives us all closure on the situation. It seems way more of a rational firing than it was. And I'm glad that we got the news that we did. So, who is the biggest joke in Dolphins history? I would say, to answer your question, Steven, I would probably say, this is a tough question. I would say the biggest joke of the last 10 years, I would say, is like Matt Burke. I just hated the way he played coach defense. I could not stand it. Joe Philbin's high on that list too. I just did not like the Joe Philbin era at all. At least the Adam Gase era had. I think my two least favorite Dolphins of the last 10 years. I would have to put Jay Cutler on that list, Brock Osweiler, and Matt Burke. Hate all three of them. I'm gonna use the word hate. What they did to our team was wrong. It was wrong. I think that's it. My throat is killing me. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm excited for the stuff that's coming out. I wanted to hold the podcast a little bit longer, but I was like, who cares? I mean, we're going to do one next week anyway. So yeah, I was just so excited to talk about some of the stuff. And dude, honestly, after we fired Brian Flores after the win, the Dolphins fans just got to just straight mud for the last 2 weeks. Like it was bad, man. It just left a bad taste in your mouth. And honestly, somehow they turned it around, and I'm like, dang, man. I don't know. I'm really excited for the future of this team. And if the Dolphins do the right thing, for the love of God, please do the right thing, and just surround the man with talent, this team can go as farther than they have over the last how many ever years. Like, they can go really far. They just have to see it. Please just see it. Keep the defensive staff. Hopefully that's not just a rumor. And go spend everything you have on the offensive side of the football. And let Mike McDaniel coach, and let Tua do his thing. That's all I hope that they do this offseason. Please, please, Miami. Please, 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 please. Just do the right thing. Because they have it, dude. They have it in their hand. They have it. They have a team that won back-to-back winning seasons under terrible circumstances, and they still had back-to-back winning seasons. A defense that's really talented, and a play caller, a defensive coordinator that's really good at what he does, Josh Boyer. Just worry about the offense and fix it. And that's all we ask as Dolphins fans. We're sick of punting every 2 seconds. That's it. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.